1868, the American Civil War was only 3 years past, and Sweden was in a time of severe crop failure, resulting in 1/5 of Sweden's population immigrating to the United States. On August 26 of that year, Nels Sylvander was among those immigrating, landing first in Quebec, Canada, along with his wife, Christina, and their 2 children. From Quebec, they made their way to Red Wing. Within 2 weeks of their arrival in Red Wing, Nels Sylvander was leading a prayer group in their home near the old Milwaukee Road Depot. The next year, 1869, the Swedish Mission Society was organized with Nels Sylvander as the president, and in May 1874 was legally incorporated as a church. Years later, at the church's 125th anniversary, Pastor Rich Thielen would share this reflection. At First Covenant in Red Wing, we are spiritual descendants of Nels Sylvander and his commitment to the Scriptures, to prayer, and to evangelism. We are the beneficiaries of his vision and values, which placed knowledge of Jesus Christ above all else. I pray that future generations will be able to say the same about our influence on them. Shortly after the turn of the century, in 1908 and 1909, fundraising and other work is done to move the original church building to the corner of West Avenue and 6th Street, where it is remodeled and added on to, and still stands today. Just a few years later, in 1914, a mortgage burning is held to acknowledge God's faithfulness through the giving and hard work of the church members. In 1921, reflecting the further assimilation of its Swedish roots into the broader community of Red Wing, Sunday evening service is now being held in English. By 1933, English is used once a month in Sunday morning worship. First Covenant has always had a heart to see God's kingdom grow. This is reflected in a 1958 decision to begin church planting in Rochester that would later become known as Rochester Covenant Church. In 2022, Todd Speaker and Aaron Drugsma Speaker accepted the pastoral call to Rochester Covenant Church. Aaron grew up at First Covenant Church in Red Wing. In 1968, the Red Wing First Covenant congregation purchased a piece of property for $5,000 outside the Red Wing city limits, located just beyond the site of the future Twin Bluff School. In 1975, the building committee for the Twin Bluff property had its first meeting. After 2 years of hard work, the blueprints and other plans were in place. On May 22nd of 1977, ground is broken for the new church building on the Twin Bluff property.
The impossible was done.
Yeah.
Well, we had a lot of discussion among membership. I was on the trustee board at the time, and
So was there a deciding factor or a deciding moment that you remember?
well, I think that our trustee board, we just decided we had to get it done.
Just under a year later, on a rainy Sunday morning, April 9, 1978, the worship service is started at the old church on 6th Street and West Avenue, then dismissed so that everyone could make their way to the new church, where the worship service would resume and then conclude. Former pastor Craig Nelson is a special guest preacher.
But anyway, that year, when we had just gotten out there for Rally Sunday, I had the big idea that we were going to send up balloons. And then I had made little tags, signs that said First Covenant Church Red Wing, and then the person that had that balloon signed their name and put the church's phone number on there. Carrie Sander balloon went the farthest into Iowa.
And then did you release them all at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was just massive balloons, and it was,
how
I'd
cool.
say at least 70.
The annual report of 1987 describes the intergenerational and intercultural nature of First Covenant at that time as 3 circles. The first circle were those who remembered the early days of Swedish founders and may have even been confirmed in the Swedish language. Those in Circle 2 were part of the downtown church and were part of making the new Twin Bluff building project possible. Circle 3 were those who had come in the past 10 years to the new building. "1988 marked one of the more difficult chapters in the history of the church. Their beloved pastor, Dan Frey, passed away after a difficult battle with cancer. This loss would continue to mark the hearts of First Covenant for many years."
Well, one of the things we talked about was when Dan Frey. Well, I remember being in the parsonage when he came back from a meeting with the doctors, and he came in, and of course he had cancer, and I remember he walked into the parsonage, and he came in, and we were waiting for the word. It was maybe we were going to have good news. He came in with his cane, and he said, "Darn!" He says, "I don't care about me, but he says my kids deserve to have a father longer than this is going to be."
A topic of church conversation that started as early as just 10 years after the Twin Bluff building was completed was the need for more space, which, among other things, affirmed the earlier decision to move from downtown as a wise and important step to take. This need for more space is keenly felt on Sunday mornings. In 1992, under the leadership of former pastor Raleigh Mossberg, a second Sunday morning worship service is added, with continued sensitivity to worship style diversity. The parking lot is expanded, and a new sound system is installed. In 1994, discussions were being held to move from a board system of church governance to a council system. In 1996, alongside continued discussion of a building expansion, a Futures Committee is established that emphasized a commitment to prayer, worship, increased evangelism, and stronger small group opportunities. In 1998, the first Red Wing Christian concert is held, featuring Go Fish and Dallas Holm. Several more Red Wing Christian concerts were sponsored over the next few years through the motivation and connections of Bob and Susan Getz. 1999 is the year that First Covenant got connected to the Internet, which led to upgrading the office computers and establishing the redwingfirstcov.org website. As another reflection of the times, $20,000 is spent to provide air conditioning for the sanctuary and other spaces on the main floor. Under the leadership of retired Pastor Marv Eppard, the first Alaskan mission team from Red Wing traveled to Unalakleet the summer of 1999. Mission trips to Alaska continued strong for many years, with many volunteers and teams from First Covenant working on building projects, including the new Alaska Christian College, and with Arctic Barnabas Ministries, completing much-needed renovations on remote village churches and parsonages. It is not at all uncommon in those years to hear of news from Alaskan ministries or to be personally invited to participate in one way or another. In 2000, despite some temporary concerns, and for the second time in the life of First Covenant, a new century arrived on time. Ministry continued with staff and volunteers spreading the good news of Jesus to all ages. Responding to a call for help in replanting a struggling sister Covenant church, work teams and plentiful meals were sent to Prairie View Covenant Church near Star Prairie, New Richmond, Wisconsin. 20 years later, in 2022, Mike Bechtold, a former associate pastor at First Covenant in Red Wing, would be called to lead that very same congregation. In 2002, Pioneer Club, a midweek program for elementary-aged kids, is first held, later becoming the Follow Jesus Club and eventually Awana. With an eye towards outreach and better serving our members and friends, money is being raised to purchase a church bus to pick up seniors for Sunday worship, and for kids participating in the Wednesday night programming, and, with a trailer in tow, transporting youth and adult mission trips to locations far from Red Wing. In 2004, after several years of developing, discussing, fundraising, and at times also delaying building plans, the congregation approved the construction of a major church addition. This addition would include a new and much larger fellowship and gathering area, new classrooms, a youth room, a new kitchen, and a large family life center that could also be used as a gym. First Covenant also sent building funds to support a building project at Alaska Christian College. Construction on the new building begins in 2006 for a total project cost of $1.8 million. Congregational sweat equity is utilized in many ways, including a skilled team of volunteers led by Marv Eppard, who builds 134 cabinets needed for the building project and a renovation of the existing church building. In the midst of all the construction activity, ministry continues, with church services being recorded and distributed on VHS tapes and also being broadcast on the Red Wing cable TV channel. In 2007, the church moves into the new building addition. Among the many benefits are the elevator and the increase of gathering, meeting, and classroom spaces. As fall turns to winter in 2008, Awana officially starts in the new building. With new space now available, ministry and church life stretches out and grows.
One of First Covenant's local mission and outreach has been Awana. It starts with inviting a family that I met last year, and he called me at 5 o'clock the second week that he came, and he said, "Jim, do you have room? I got a couple more friends that I'd like to bring tonight." Then the next week, this little boy called me up again at about 5 o'clock and said, "Jim, I got another one. You have room for another one?" And I said, "Yeah, we got room." So I went there at 5 o'clock and picked up these two other friends and then another girl and his sister. So we had my truck was full that night. We did the same thing, and each night, they're still coming this year, each night we share a little bit on the way home, and it's a fun time, and they know that they're getting a relationship with Jesus Christ.
The traditions of Christmas cantatas, kids' musical programs, various meals, and other special and everyday events continue strong in the 2000s, fully utilizing both the remodeled areas of the original church building along with the Family Life Center and other new spaces. A continued strength of First Covenant is the intergenerational relationships and the interactions that happen as a part of Discovery Hour and weekly church life. As the first decade of the 21st century comes to a close, volunteers are actively leading and supporting the church library, the prayer shawl ministry, the meals, babysitting, and cleaning ministry. The new and reimagined youth ministries of Roots, a youth program, and Remedy, an after-school program, are starting up in the 2010s. An emphasis on music and fellowship continues strong into the decade, with plays such as Uncle Phil's Diner and the Sunday Morning Kids programs.
When we were out at the new church, Lake Beauty Bible Camp was fairly new. And we always had a lot of kids that were going to go to Bible camp. So we organized and at that time, you had to have a health history and a physical to go to camp. Really? So Lee Sander set up where the Lund Covenant, Zion Covenant, and Bethel Covenant and our church could all come for physicals at our church.
Across the years, Lake Beauty Bible Camp has been an important part of First Covenant. Camper scholarships are made possible through fundraisers like silent auctions, the collection of Econo food receipts, and Glenn Merkins selling apples on Sunday mornings in the fall. In 2013 and 2014, the Congregational Vitality Team is at work, exploring First Covenant calling to be a missional church, resulting in the vision statement, to be actively missional, connecting people of all ages to the transformative power of Jesus Christ and to each other. 2015 marks the beginning of a season of change. First Covenant says goodbye to longtime pastor Tim Anderson as he retires, and to Jamie Staples, who First Covenant joins along with other churches to plant Renew Covenant Church in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. In 2017, a Walk for Water is held, raising $2,552 for drilling a new well in the Congo.
Awesome.
Following this, in 2018, made possible by the Ilona Franciscovich Seed Fund and spearheaded by Emily Ikes, over $13,000 is raised to drill a well in Zimbabwe, and that's still providing water to this day. Confirmation continues with 7th and 8th graders learning about the Old Testament one year and then learning about the New Testament in the following year through Bible study, discussion, and various learning activities. Youth ministry with our nearby Twin Bluff school neighbors takes on the form of Fusion, an after-school program in 2018. This is followed in 2019 with a major sanctuary remodel. During the winter of 2019 to 2020, Hope and Harbor is in its first year of operation. First Covenant was a significant developer and partner through the efforts of former pastor Mark Ikes. 2020 will be remembered as the year when COVID begins, and First Covenant realizes that church life will no longer be the same. We have no idea exactly what that means as we sit in the pews on March 15th, 2020, hearing encouragement about God's faithfulness as we face the unknown, which is sure to arrive in the days immediately ahead. Whoever could have imagined empty church sanctuaries on a Sunday morning? Thankfully, technology and the hard work of staff and volunteers allow the church to gather online. As 2020 progresses, meeting in person resumes with restrictions in place. As the calendar turns to 2021, church life is rebuilding. Looking towards future ministries opportunities, the 150 by 150 campaign is launched with a $100,000 matching gift, with a goal to raise an additional $150,000 by the 150th anniversary of First Covenant, to be celebrated in 2024. Throughout 2022 and 23, First Covenant Church continues to grow as a place where the people of Red Wing and the surrounding communities gather and are welcomed. Many new and familiar faces are a regular part of Sunday mornings and throughout the week, as fellowship, discipleship, worship, and ministry grows.
And that brings us to this day in 2024 as we celebrate the 150th anniversary of First Covenant Church in Red Wing. That small group of people that began in 1868 has become a church that has reached thousands of people over several generations through worship services and Bible studies and classes and kids ministries and youth ministries, as well as noon hour and after school programs, outreach events, festivals, concerts, and theatrical productions, as well as significant partnerships for mission and ministry, both locally and globally, all over the course of 150 years of fruitful ministry. You know, the passion that led that group of people to gather around the Word of God and to share the hope of Jesus and love with their neighbors still compels us today as we look forward to the future, bringing people to Jesus and heaven to earth until His return.